This is every running back matchup for week 7. We've got you covered. Make sure you drop a like if you enjoy these videos. We'll keep putting them out for you as long as we have the engagement on it. Let's go to the Thursday night game, aka tonight, aka Pittsburgh, Cincinnati. Now, we started with running backs this week because we figured you'd want to hear about Chase Brown and Jaylen Warren. Our rankings for these running back ones this week. Jaylen Warren is somebody we are going to have in the B tier. Again, a slower week for him last week, but when you're looking at the matchup this week and when you're looking at what he projects most of the time, the matchup is actually against the worst defense against running backs in the league. So he is going to be a must start for us on Thursday Night Football. Thursday Night Football games usually get whack anyways. He's going to be a start. Kenneth Gainwell, how many teams are on bye this week? Just the Bills and Ravens?
Yes.
Realistically, if you need to throw him in, you could. He's not a bad flex option for a running back too. I'm going to put him as a meh because, again, with the bye weeks, we might need to. And when I'm looking at the running back twos down the league, I mean, Kenneth Gainwell is probably a top 5 backup running back option to start right now in fantasy football because he's been getting consistent volume. And so I'm going to put him as a meh. In terms of Chase Brown, we have him in the D tier this week. Obviously not near as high as like a Jaylen Warren because the matchup is not as good. And also Chase Brown has not been as good. We've got him in like the Ramondre, Pollard, Henderson, Bam Knight type tier. That being said, I'm going to say still you probably have to... I'm going to say meh on Chase Brown. I feel like Chase Brown could have a touchdown or two tonight. I mean, but I feel like it's no guarantee, and the pass catching upside hasn't really been there. I'm going to say meh on him, and I'm going to say sit on P. Ryan. I'm not super comfortable starting Chase Brown if I can help it. That said, if you have to start Chase Brown because you have nobody else, throw him in your lineup. There are worse starts this week. The matchup isn't particularly tough. Again, the guys when you get down to the D tier, though, they're just pretty shaky starts, and you have to kind of acknowledge that with Chase Brown. And so I think you're probably going to lean towards starting him, but I'm going to put him as a shaky start for this week.
Then for the Rams in Jacksonville, we have very straightforward, clear-cut backfield for both teams. Kyren, bell cow, only starting running back there that is, getting like 90% of the work there. Blake Corum had a really nice fun stint there to start the season, and Kyren has really just popped off since then. So he'll be in the A tier this week in what is a neutral matchup against Jacksonville's run defense, who's been fine at I think the 9th least amount of points to running backs in fantasy production this season. But again, I don't think that's going to stop Kyren, especially with no Puka Nacua. They might try to lean on the run a little bit more than how they have to start the year. And then Blake Corum in the G tier. He's, again, you're not starting him. Travis Etienne on the flip side. C tier, I do think his ceiling's a little bit lower than Kyren's, and his floor is also just a little bit lower because he's not getting the crazy amount of volume that Kyren is capable of getting with no Puka Nacua in that offense. Etienne, through the first quarter of the season, has actually, even though he's a number one there, he's gotten 12 carries apiece the last 2 weeks, which is less than what you saw to start the year with 16, 16, and 19 carries. So that is a little bit concerning, and the efficiency has gone down notably so, but his receiving usage has gone up a bit. He's gone up to 4 and 5 targets apiece against KC and Seattle. So another tough, stout run defense, which is the Rams' front four. We'll see if ETN can find the end zone. If he doesn't, though, he's probably going to be lower double digits, but he's still a must start this week in the C tier.
Yeah, the New Orleans-Chicago game, we're going to have Alvin Kamara as a start for us this week. Even though Kamara's been struggling, he still has been getting 5 to 6 targets a game, so it makes his floor pretty high. Plus, when you're talking about the matchup against the Bears have given up the 6th most amount of points to running backs in fantasy football this year. Kendre Miller, for that reason, is also going to be a meh for us this week. Only plug him in if you need to, but he's somebody that's getting enough volume per game now. When you look in the last couple games, 11, 10, and 8 attempts, and he also has had a touchdown in week 4 against Buffalo. He is somebody that does have touchdown upside on a week-to-week basis, so if you need somebody to plug in with bye weeks, maybe you have James Cook on bye, maybe you have Derrick Henry on bye, then you have Kendre Miller, maybe you plug him in. So I don't feel great about it, but the matchup is favorable, and Kendre Miller does get a lot of carries against this defense. We're talking about the defensive matchup. We're talking about carrying the ball, right? Kamara is going to get his own with the receiving game. And then in Chicago, DeAndre Swift looked great in his first week off of a bye last week. We're going to have him as a start as well in the B tier for us. We have Alvin Kamara in the C tier. We have Kendre Miller in the F tier. We have DeAndre Swift in the B tier. It's a neutral matchup for Swifty, but again, we'll see if he can keep building on the post-bye week bump that he might have gotten in that offense. Obviously, no 55-yard touchdown reception coming this week, most likely, but still somebody coming off of a hot week and in a week where he averaged 8+ yards per carry that you're going to want to plug into your fantasy football lineups.
And you got Miami and Cleveland. Expect a bounce back this week for Quinshawn. He's going to be in the A tier alongside Devon Achane because Miami's allowed the 4th most amount of points to fantasy wide receivers this season. Achane on the flip side, again, he's going to be not in the S tier this week, even though he has S tier upside rest of the season. A tier because Cleveland's allowed the least amount of points to fantasy running backs this season. So polar opposite matchups for both of these guys, even though they're in the same game. And I mean, in Miami, like, what's going to happen there long term? Is it just going to get ugly and uglier? Apparently Tua just like hates everything about their leadership there in Miami, which is ironic because you would expect the quarterback there to be a part of the leadership, but this is where we're at. Devon Achane clearly transcends that, so we don't expect him to have like a super down week or anything like that. Any of those top sort of bell cow running backs that get a ton of usage, like a Josh Jacobs, can salvage their day and still have 12 to 15 points. So
he's also a receiver.
He's a receiving back, and that's very good as well. Expect that to raise his floor quite a bit. I think Achane and Judkins will both have decent days.
Yeah, in the Las Vegas-Kansas City game, we'll start with the Las Vegas side of the ball. It's a neutral matchup for both of these teams, both middle-of-the-road run defenses here in terms of line points of fantasy football running backs. Ashton Jeanty will have in the B tier. With Jeanty, he had another solid game against the Colts. It's nothing like his 33-point game, but it was enough volume and enough production to where with a touchdown, he had 16 points. And so it's not elite by any means, but it is solid and somebody you want to plug into your starting lineup, ideally your flex spot. Raheem Mostert, we don't have ranked, so he's going to be a sit for us. On the Kansas City side of the ball, again, neutral matchup, but we are going to say start for Isaiah Pacheco this week, and here's why. We're going to put him in the C tier. It's a neutral matchup, but when you're looking at the usage last week for Isaiah Pacheco,
went up a
77% snap share for this guy,
Yep.
12 carries, both his highest marks of the season. He had 3 targets, only caught 1, but had 6 points. He's got touchdown upside. He really does. And we'll play into maybe they're trending to using him more now. He was getting some red zone carries as well. And we'll plug him into our starting lineups this week, and then we'll demote Kareem Hunt. We have in the H tier now as a sit for this week. Again, neutral matchup on both sides, but Ashton Jeanty in the B tier, Pacheco in the C tier are the guys you're going to want to start out of this matchup.
Philly and Minnesota will be next. Saquon going to be in the A tier. He's got a solid matchup this week, and it's a neutral one against Minnesota, who's allowed a decent amount of production to running backs this season, but the issue with Saquon, the issue with Philadelphia's offense as a whole is, can they really get anything going outside of the tush push where they just cheat like the whole time? And I know it's not cheating, but sorry, Eagles fans. I still think Saquon's going to be fine. He's a must start. Obviously, his upside is unmatched. You've seen it before. So just expecting a game where he can finally go off, and I think that is possible against Minnesota this week. Shipley, A.J. Dillon, backups, not ranked. Jordan Mason on the other side, still going to be in the B tier here because Aaron Jones is not back. You will probably see a week-to-week decline for Jordan Mason after this because I think Aaron Jones is set to return in week 8, but it is not week 8 this week. It's week 7. So Jordan Mason's going to be the bell cow there effectively. Xavier Scott has been getting like a couple of touchdowns since Aaron Jones has gone down. Very, very volatile. Not a guy that you're comfortable starting. We'll give him a nod and put him in the H tier, though. He's a sit.
Yeah, let's go down to the next matchup. This one's tough. Carolina versus the New York Jets. A lot of you guys are going to want to know. Right now on the graphic, we're going to have Rico Dowdle and Trevor Etienne. As of Wednesday, we're recording this video. It does look like Chuba Hubbard was limited in today's practice. And so limited participant. He might return this week. And so I'll give you 2 hypothetical scenarios here. Without Chuba Hubbard, it's Rico Dowdle in the A tier, start, Trevor Etienne in the H tier, sit. With Chuba Hubbard, we're going to have Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard as mez. I really don't know how the split's going to be here with Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard. I think they both are risky starts before we figure out what the split's going to look like. Unless, of course, this is when you're going to have to take, check our rankings as we update them throughout the week on the site. Because if they come out and say, yeah, Chuba's playing, but Rico's the starter, then we're going to move Rico above Chuba. If they both play and they say nothing about it, I'm going to feel pretty uncomfortable starting both of them, to be honest. And I think they'd both be like C or D tier level running backs. So there are your 2 scenarios. Again, we don't know what's going to happen with Chuba Hubbard, and we don't know who the starters are going to be. And so this week, it just makes it a pretty rough evaluation in terms of who to start. Now, on the other side of the ball, the New York Jets, again, neutral matchup. Again, red Vegas light, red offense light, because Breece Hall's been bad recently, and the Vegas light is not good for this really bad team. We're gonna go start for Breece Hall though. We're gonna have him in the B tier. I still think you have to plug him in your lineups every week. Isaiah Davis we won't plug into our lineups. We'll have him in the H tier. So again, obviously it's a fluid situation with the Panthers. For the Jets, you'll just start Breece and you'll forget about it.
I got the really, really whack running back matchup here with New England and Tennessee. This is a lot to sort out. And we're going to have Ramondre and Henderson both ranked in the D tier, but I'm calling an audible here. I'm going start with Ramondre, and I'm going straight up sit with Travion Henderson in what is a very favorable matchup, actually, for these running backs in New England. But the reality is This is not a true committee like we thought it could be once Gibson went down with that injury, the ACL. Travion Henderson's usage actually went down, back down to 30%. Ramondre getting over 70% of the work there in 13 carries. And from all the news that we've been hearing from New England, they are not very happy with Travion Henderson, or at least Vrabel isn't. Why? I don't know. Anyone's guess. But also, they're in the market right now potentially for another running back, which is so beyond me. Like that's crazy. But the reality is Henderson doesn't look like he's going to be getting a crazy amount of usage anytime soon. And I understand I could eat my words in what is a very favorable matchup this week, and Henderson could go off. It'd be totally...
If this is what it takes for Henderson to go off, as you being the sacrificial lamb, let's do it.
I would gladly sacrifice myself for Henderson to start producing at a high level. Until then, he's a sit. You can't start him. Ramondre, I'm cool with you doing it just because of the matchup alone this week and the bye weeks and the injuries, etc. On the other side, it doesn't get any prettier here with Tennessee. Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears. Pollard we have in the D tier. Tyjae we have in the G tier. Do I really feel, honestly, any better about one guy over the other here? No, I don't. I think Tony Pollard's floor is higher. I think Tyjae Spears' ceiling is a little bit higher, though. His floor is going to be lower, which is why we're going to have him in the G tier. Both of these guys I have listed as mez. Brian Callahan getting fired is not going to change the outlook of this offense because they just elevated their offensive coordinator to interim head coach, which literally means their offensive system, like, it's not going to change. Pollard's snap share went down significantly. It has been going down significantly since Spears came back healthy the last 2 weeks. Spears' usage goes up from 25 to 59% snap share, Pollard down to 73 and 43% respectively over the last 2 weeks. That's not good. That's not promising for any one of these guys in what is a very tough matchup against New England's front four, which is very, very good at stopping the run. They've allowed the fifth least amount of points to running backs, and these running backs aren't even productive as is. So I'm going to list them both as mez. If you have to start them because of injuries, bye weeks, that's fine. But neither of them we feel good about.
This one's tougher. We're going to have Cam Scatterbo in the C tier. I would probably lean B tier, actually, for Cam Scatterbo, so I might change that, to be honest with you. It's a tough matchup, though. Denver has a very good run defense, but it doesn't really matter. Cam Scatterbo is going to run like an absolute freaking maniac with his head cut off. So I would say B tier for Cam Scatterbo here. And then,
they did shut down Saquon.
Yeah, I mean, I know. So it's a tough matchup. Again, sixth least amount of points to running backs this year the Denver Broncos have allowed. So we're still starting Scatterbo, though. That's the thing. And I realistically, I think he's going to have to. Like, the guy scored 3 touchdowns last game. He's going to have a touchdown. Tyron Tracy's a sit for us. We're not going to start him. On the Denver side of the ball, J.K. Dobbins, start. R.J. Harvey, sit. Again, the same thing with, like, Travion. I don't want to start Harvey until I know he's going to get consistent. Like, you can't do it with Harvey. And so he's a sit. He's in the F tier. But J.K. Dobbins and Cam Scatterbo both we're going to have in the B tier this week.
Then we've got Indy and the Chargers. I think a lot of people are going to be very, very quick to just throw Kamani Vidal into there and be like, oh, he's going to score another 25 points. I would say not so fast. He is still going to get a lot of work here, which is why we have him ranked in the C tier. I am totally cool with you starting him. I'm just going to tell you, don't expect another like nuclear week for him in what is a really, really solid run defense in the Colts. That's definitely their strength offensively. And another thing to note is we'll talk about this in the wide receiver rankings video, but their secondary is in shambles at the moment. And if Kenny Moore is not back, and we're expecting Travarius Ward to not be back for a while because that was a second concussion in like a few weeks, they don't have anybody there in the secondary, which means Ladd and QJ are going to eat all day long. So they may as well just pass the ball like crazy. Don't even care about Kamani Vidal. So I'm fine with you starting him again this week as a flex spot or as a flex option, but I don't think it's like the prettiest thing of all time. JT, S tier, rest of the season, he's amazing.
Yeah. Let's go to the Green Bay matchup here. We'll start Josh Jacobs in the A tier. You know, Josh Jacobs is fantastic. He's just a step below like Bijan, JT, and CMC, and then he's right there in that A tier. Like, we really, really like him rest of the season. You're going to start him. We don't even have Emmanuel Wilson ranked. It's a decent offense light and Vegas light for Josh Jacobs this week. On the other side of the ball for Arizona, it's a bad matchup with guys that you don't feel good about starting. I don't know how else to say it. Bam Knight is a sit. I don't want to start Bam Knight. Like, I realistically, we're looking at Bam Knight last. Yes, sure, he had a touchdown. He had 11 carries and 2 targets. Like, that's not good enough volume. You know, yeah. I don't want to. I don't want to. It's a tough matchup. I don't like the backfield. I don't like the offense. I don't want to start him. And they're going to be playing from behind. To me, there's no way I'm starting Bam Knight. Yeah. I have him in the D tier. In fact,
Carter got the same amount of carries and 5 targets, and he wasn't productive either. It's just ugly there. It's really ugly there.
And I would say, you know, again, the any other back there, I would say don't start him. Michael Carter, we're gonna have in the F tier. I'm gonna have both these guys in the F tier. Actually, I don't feel comfortable starting one over the other. I don't want to start either of them, period. They're both sets for me this week.
Yeah. And we got Washington and Dallas. Ja'Cory Cross-Kamara after a tough week last week, where, again, everybody was expecting him to go off again after he had a 27-pointer against the Chargers. Snap share did go up, which was great. That was very encouraging. Got 17 carries, bell cow workload. Inefficient with that usage and not a ton of receiving work. I do think his floor is quite a bit lower than a lot of your starting running backs this week, but I am okay starting Cross-Kamara again because he's going up against Dallas, who just has one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. So if you were to have a bounce back week for a running back that isn't, a high-end, elite-level type running back. Like, I think Ja'Cory Cross-Kamara could be that guy this week where he could really come into that matchup and make a name for himself again. But beyond that, Jeremy McNichols not startable. Jaden Blue on the flip side, H tier, not startable. Javonte's the bell cow there, A tier. Expect him to bounce back as well after a slower week last week. This is a neutral matchup against Washington's run defense, which just allowed DeAndre Swift to pop off for like 25 points last week.
Yeah, like 12 points rushing, but still, like, he had a really good game. And they averaged like 8 yards per carry.
Yep.
This one I'm going to spend no time on. Atlanta, Bijan and Atlanta, San Francisco, Bijan, CMC, S tier. Start both of them. The other two backs, don't start them. They're in the F and H tier.
Actually, so quick note with Algier, he's had like 3 double-digit games this year. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
I'm not saying. So
you're starting him over Bijan.
Yes, that's what we definitely want to do. Yeah,
because
sure.
he keeps having touchdowns.
Yeah, if your team is in shambles this week for whatever reason, and you have to flex him, I guess you can, but I agree with you.
I'll put him as a Matt. He's probably one of the better flex backup guys. But then again, Bijan and Chris McCaffrey are the two guys you're starting in this game, and they're both S tier next game.
Yep, Tampa and Detroit. This one pretty straightforward on the Tampa side. It's Rachaad White and nobody else. He's going to be in the A tier so long as Bucky Irving is injured. It is a tougher matchup against Detroit's run defense. They shut down Kansas City's running backs last week, which isn't saying much, but Rachaad White should be fine. Honestly, he always finds a way to get the ball in the end zone when he gets bell cow work. That's why he was a top 6 running back a few years back before Bucky came in there. Sean Tucker is going to be a sit though. And then we've got Jahmyr Gibbs on the flip side, must sit every single week, S tier. Solid matchup against Tampa, who's allowed like top 12 production to running backs to date. And then David Montgomery, who we're going to have in the C tier. I'm fine with you starting him this week because of that matchup specifically. Again, it's any given week going to be pretty matchup centric for David Montgomery if he's going to have a really high upside week or a really, really low floor week. And I do think that they're going to be capable of popping some big runs this week, and David Montgomery could be he could be a recipient of that. So.
All right, and then the ugliest running back game of the week. Nick Chubb in the D tier. These are yellow lights matchup wise, so not a crazy matchup on either side. Nick Chubb is a D tier guy. Yellow light. I guess I could technically give Woody Marks a yellow light as well. I'll just go straight yellows, straight mez across this matchup. I don't know who's going to get the volume between Chubb and Marks. I don't know who's going to score the touchdown, and I can say the exact same thing about Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet. So you just don't know. These guys are inconsistent. Every single one of them is inconsistent. Every single one of them is in the red zone every week. Every single one of them is more efficient every week. I don't know. Look, you have to plug these guys in. Do it, but they're shaky starts, and if you don't have to, leave them out of your lineup. There you go. That's gonna be our running backs for this week. Again, we'll have wide receivers out for you tomorrow. If you want to check our rankings as we update them weekly on the site, you can get the updated rankings. Create a free account with code DOMAIN. I've got the link in the pinned comment. You can get all the free site tools, and you can check our rankings as they change as we get more updates on injuries and things like that. Wide receivers tomorrow morning. Again, drop a like. Make sure you're subscribed as well. We appreciate you guys subscribing. We're trying to hit 40,000 subscribers before the season's over, and you can help us do that. So we appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you here tomorrow.